Hi, this is Asnes with Lingoport, and I have with me Aaron Sakievich and Olivier Libouban. Aaron is from a partner company that we work with quite often for customer solutions called Lingotek, representing the TMS side of the house. We have Olivier, who's going to give some technical demos of some ideas and all. And then the subject matter really has been a hot button, especially this year. We've Lingoport has always been on this train of continuous development and localization, kind of doing this, right? So DevOps has been important to Lingoport for years, but it seems like DevOps is not a new concept, but the application of it is getting broader and stronger across the board, and the demand for it, even from the C-level on down, pushing for automation in all kinds of processes, has kind of never been this big, this hot as we've seen it this year. So we thought it was appropriate to give a webinar on this, and even to give you our spin, Lingoport's spin on how the industry could actually improve its delivery and integrate better. So we're going to show you that today. Let's see, Olivier, I have to get to the next screen. Olivier, I don't seem to have control. There we go, good. All right, so by way of introduction again, my name is Asnes. I'm the CEO, founder of Lingoport. And with me is Olivier Libouban. Olivier leads all product development, and he's been with us for a lot of years. I want to give Olivier credit because when he first started at Lingoport, we had we had product business that was very small amount of our revenue. Now it's the major part of what we do, and it's because Olivier has expanded the vision from sort of thinking in terms of helping an individual at a company in terms of how do you apply internationalization, localization, and QA across an organization. And so a lot of kudos to growing up our product suite go to Olivier. Aaron is the product manager for Lingotek. Lingotek has been a fabulous partner for us. We have a lot of common customers, but also our teams tend to work really well together, and that's fun. It's just really great to have partners where kind of individuals know each other and don't even necessarily have to go through channels because we're all kind of slacking back and forth. So very cool partnership with Lingotek. Aaron's going to talk a little bit more about Lingotek. They are a TMS with both cloud and on-premise solutions, but they also have localization services as well. All right, so just very briefly, a little bit about Lingoport. I'd be sort of remiss in not sort of giving you a little background here. On the product side, Lingoport is, probably first known for our globalizer software, and that provides internationalization right for the developer as they're writing code. So as the developer is writing something, they can either see in their development environment or maybe in notes from a pull request or on a dashboard. There's a number of ways that they can interact and see, hey, did I create a new internationalization problem and can I correct it really quickly? Of course, you can also look at entire code bases historically and say, hey, this has never been internationalized, or we need to clean up these things. You can use it that way as well. But the most powerful way is when you're using it continuously. We'll talk about that a little bit. The second product is Localizer. Now, for years, we called this Lingoport Resource Manager, and nobody could remember the name. And then it was like, why didn't we call it Localizer in the first place? It matches Globalizer. So what Localizer does is it automatically picks up when a developer adds a resource file, adds something that's going to be in the UI that needs to be translated. It automatically grabs that out of the repo, checks that file to make sure that there isn't a problem, like there's no duplicate string ID, there's no missing curly bracket, there's no broken encodings, anything that could potentially mess up the translation, and automatically sends it to be translated. Can send it either into a TMS, sometimes it just goes to a vendor portal. It's up to the client where they want it to go. When it comes back, the same checks happen. We make sure that we don't you know, kind of create a problem automatically. So we checked the files to make sure there wasn't a tag that was, you know, translated accidentally, or like I say, somebody didn't break the encoding in the file, or something along those lines. Anyway, if it passes all the checks, it usually does. It goes right back into the repo. Nobody touches anything. It's super fast, right? The last part is QA. What we saw in the industry was that people, when it came to linguistic QA, is a messy process. People are collecting screenshots, even doing things like circling a word they want changed on a screenshot, filing it as a bug. It's like 20 steps before something gets fixed, and sometimes it takes like weeks, months, sometimes even years for those fixes to take place. So we took on the QA process. You'll see a little bit of that, how we do it directly, like you literally go to a screen and you make the change, voila. Well, I want to say that when you make QA fast, you can actually make everything upstream a lot faster as well. If it's fast to correct things, why wouldn't you continuously deliver localization? Now, what I mean by that is a lot of people talk about continuous localization, but it's not continuous. The whole industry, even including us, has this model where as the developers are in the sprint, they wait until late in the sprint, and perhaps they gather a few, because there's three things going on. First of all, the words are changing still in the sprint, right? So you don't want to send it to a translator if you haven't like reviewed it, make sure that it's stabilized. So you're waiting until later, right? The second thing is minimums. As much as I'd love to see minimums go away in the industry, they still exist. And so the other thing I think about is if I'm a translator and I have 37 words that are part of one sprint to translate, and I have another project that's 10,000 words, which one is going to be first on my priority? It's just human nature, right? So what people do is they wait. So even though they might have their translation process down so that they can return it in, let's say, 3 days, maybe it's 3 hours, but usually it's 3 to 5 days is even fast, right? For most accounts that I see. You're late, you're not continuous. You're calling yourself continuous only because you have some kind of connection, but you're not really continuous. So how can we change that so we're literally ready to always deploy? We'll talk about that some more. You can only do that if the QA is fast and easy. I've talked too long on this screen. All right, Aaron, sorry, I'm like taking your time away. Go ahead.
So that's fine. All right, yep, so excited to be here. I'm a product manager at Lingotek. I've been working here for about 4 years, and just like to echo what Adam said, we really like working with Lingoport. So as a brief introduction to us, we were founded in 2006, Lehi, Utah. We created the first translation management system in the cloud, and we've built numerous integrations with platforms and systems like Drupal, WordPress, AEM, Marketo, and others. And our fully RESTful APIs make it really easy for anyone to integrate with us. We also provide language services with a global network of certified linguists specializing in software development, engineering, medical content, and a lot more. We automate the middle of this software localization process that we're talking about today. So as soon as Lingoport sends us the content or the software streams, we automatically allocate resources, assignments, SLAs, quality, billing, and so on. And then when the translation is complete, the TMS immediately sends that content back to Lingoport. And so that helps you avoid some of the issues that Adam was talking about, like minimum fees, waiting for assignments to get large enough to capture a linguist's attention. The way that we automate everything makes it really easy for our team to pick it up and immediately translate it and immediately send it back. So this scalability prevents the snags in development workflows. And the great thing about our TMS is, and with this solution with Lingoport, is if you don't want to learn our large, complex TMS, you don't have to. You just focus on development. You finish the strings, Lingoport sends it to us, we send it back, and that's all you have to do with it.
All right, thanks, Aaron. All right, so let's just back up a little bit. Hopefully people, if you signed up, you're a little familiar with the term DevOps. It's really a pipeline of automation that works. I mean, the whole purpose of it is to get everybody working together more easily, right? To provide, you know, what I'll call visual feedback, right? Visual, you see, okay, Joe was working on this function. I can now see that. I can incorporate that. Joe also gets to demo what he's doing or she's doing in round trip. And that, to me, should include localization. A developer should always be able to see, what does my software look like in German, right? It should be like, boom, boom. Now, we commonly do these sort of things for issues like, I'll pick security, right? So people will have automated scans to make sure that developers aren't accidentally creating security holes. So that kind of mindset exists. We also, you know, at the basic level, have the idea of source control management, so that continuously Joe, Bob, Sue, Mary, Linda can all be working on code, and then it gets merged together automatically without having to do a lot of manual shuffling around. So those are examples. So that's version control, for instance. QA needs to be integrated in the process so that QA can begin checking and work on things, again, without waiting for a magical handoff. All of that is a function and a product of the DevOps organizations. So it's really important. It's one of the accelerators for product development that enables companies to deliver sort of delight. That I like to think of it as all this development, all this change is all there to deliver really sticky delight for end users. That's what it's all about. And of course, localization is part of that. If a user in Japan is getting the same treatment, that is, they're getting the same delight of new features being kind of magically added to their application, it's a very sticky thing. It applies everywhere, and they shouldn't sort of, you know, this might be a little accusatory, but worldwide users should not be second-class consumers of software. They account for a tremendous amount of the growth plan of your organization. And so by integrating with DevOps, we have in what especially in the way I'm going to show you here, or Olivier is going to show you, allows for that to be continuously provided. So the other thing that's going on is that companies are switching to this microservices architecture. And think of it like at a high level, what that means. It means like, when you think of a software product, in many organizations, there are now different configurations for that product, right? So we have the admin function, and we have this other function, and this other function, and maybe the mobile versions, and all that. And they're broken up into separate repositories where the developers work. Sure, no problem. But the idea is that these functions are contained, and they're spread around. And what it means is there's an explosion of repositories that might need localization. It's actually a real challenge for the localization department, because now, instead of, say, for a product onboarding, you know, 2 or 3 repositories, or maybe even 20, now they're onboarding potentially up to hundreds. I mean, we're seeing teams that used to take care of 3 or 4 repositories taking care of 40. Or taking, like, you know, we have customers with single product, quote, products that are a matter of microservices with literally, you know, 240 repositories they're monitoring, 300 repositories they're managing. And we see this stuff live just because as we work with customers. So we know it's a real problem. And so unless you have some automated way to kind of deal with that explosion, it gets harder to do. And if you're manually, let's say you're taking some script that's homegrown, that's very nice, it doesn't necessarily scale to the new problems that are headed the localization team's way. And so that fast deployment, that fast debugging of small slices of application, and the assembly of those functions, even borrowing from different products in the product line, that's kind of the new architecture that we have to be aware of. I think I'm kind of repeating myself. Speed is a premium now with all of these repositories. You need to be fluid with development. The last thing localization wants to be is an anchor, a boat anchor on the speed of development. Developers are investing all this intention on getting this sprint done in 2 weeks, and we just don't want to always be behind. The other thing is, by always being behind, if there's a problem, there's a momentum issue. So if there's a problem that needs a developer's attention, I know nobody ever has problems, right? If there's a problem, it's going to be more likely that that problem just gets pushed into the backlog, because most developers, if they're working on something and then they've moved on to the next thing, if that problem comes up and they have to go back to the other thing, they have to put their head in a whole other space of what was the other thing, what was the environment I had set up, what did that code based on? I've gone on to the new thing, and there's lost time in going back and forth. So I just got a note that I'm talking too long. I get very excited about this stuff. All right, so you want to create no hassles, and you also want to remember that backlogs are purgatory. As a company, Lingoport delivers a lot of IITN services, so internationalization services, and I can tell you some of the largest worldwide recognized names. If I spouted out some of their names, you'd all know them, right? They might even be on your phone. They all have internationalization issues. Some of those issues are 3 and 4 years old that they're just not getting to. So in the end, they end up hiring us to get to them. I was just reviewing some yesterday that the developer was saying, gosh, I was actually surprised they even ship with this. Well, they did, because nobody could get back to it, right? So you want to avoid that. So that's it. All right, so my vision for localization, then we go into the demos, is don't build IITN backlogs, right? That's the very first thing, right? We're not going to talk so much about IITN today, but don't build those. Know that you can eliminate those backlogs with Globalizer, right? Localization testing, if you're finding your internationalization issues during testing, it's too late. Chances are the developers have moved on, right? Use continuous machine translation in new ways, and we'll show you that. The reason you can use that, I know everybody's scared of machine translation, but it's really gotten better, right? Not everybody's scared, but a lot of people are, right? Use it to give the developers immediate localization feedback. They should never have to wait to see what their application looks like in various languages. Even if they can't read the screen, they can learn a lot from seeing it. If you want to raise the visibility of localization, it's got to be visible, period, right? Apply human translation during the localization QA. Now that used to be kind of a no-go. You just wanted to clean up a little bit at the end because it's a really process-oriented, time-intensive thing to fix during QA. We're going to show you that different. And then, of course, your translation assets. The TMS is like the greatest thing for managing all that. So how the TMS it plays a role in that is very important. Finally, developers never wait for localization, always ready to deploy. All right, I've talked too long. Thank you for adoring me. Olivier, I'm passing it on to you. It's time for demos. All right.
All right, thanks, Adam. Really nice presentation. So what I wanted to emphasize today is we have different ways of onboarding repositories so they can be localized. There are so many different ways to do that. What we want to show is you don't have to choose between machine translation and human translation. you can have both. And you can have something where you have continuous localization done right away, as soon as a developer pretty much adds strings to a development environment, and then have the actual human translation refine that. And finally, when the application is available to a user, can have that user, like an in-country application specialist or an LSP that's specialized in linguistic review that and actually make corrections that are going to go back to the TMS. So this is kind of unique in the industry. I don't think anybody else does that. So we're going to show two types of demos. The first one is a developer adds, modifies something in the English local resource files while they are writing their code. And what happens after that? So localizer detects and updates the dashboard. The files that need to be sent to Lingotek, to the TMS, are validated and checked and sent. Lingotek returns those files right away using machine translation and actually using first leveraging translation memory and then applying machine translation. And then sometime later, human translator will finalize that. So you always have something ready to be deployed and then to be refined for deployment. The second one is going to be, once an application has been translated, a linguistic reviewer can make corrections based on what he or she sees in the running application, not in the, left is English, right is French, and you need to do that. No, it's in the actual running application. You see something that you don't like, you make the correction in Localizer QA, and it's handled completely. So those are the two demos we're going to do today. The first demo here, just briefly, a developer writes something in English in a repository. Localizer picks it up. When you want to send those files, you click a button, it's sent over to Lingotek. It's being machine translated and returned after validation, and then it's being human translated and returned for the full thing. So that's the first demo. I'm going to switch over to an environment where we have Rebel Outfitters. You may have seen this before. And you were saying that I've modified two Droid titles here in a string called, in a file, resource file called strings.json under enus. So it's really for the English one, and that's what developers do. They don't care about how localization is done. They care about how to write an application that looks right in their original language. If you look at this here, you're going to see that this was modified, those two strings here. And it was deployed, by the way, and when it was deployed, you see that it should not be 3PO premise, it should be 3PO and this title here. So in the deployed application, it's been deployed in English for now. And if you look at the English file, you see 3PO, not Primus, and so on. So this is what has happened. However, in French, it has not been translated yet. And that's because I haven't clicked a button. So what happens is that localizer picks those, and let me see if I'm logged out, because usually we have security out of the wazoo for everything. So what you're seeing here is that the enus string.json has been modified. You see that directly. So now I'm not a developer anymore. I am a localization manager. And as a localization manager, I just look at this and I say, maybe I want to send that over to the TMS now. And I have two locales here, German and French. You may have 20, 40, 90 locales. Some of our clients have over 90 locales and continue to add more locales, by the way. So I'm going to just click send to translation. And when this happens, if I go back to my little script here, to my little diagram, sorry. I was in Localizer, I clicked something, and it's doing the job of sending the files over to Lingotek here. So I'm going to go back to the demo here. I can show you something, what's happening behind the scenes. It's not something that you need to care about, but behind the scenes, there is something here that has happened, and hopefully it will refresh right now so that you'll see send to translate. Oh, let's see. I need to log again. I always need to log in. There we go. And go on Sapphire. So again, this is this is something that's in the background. You have a server that does a number of things, and you were saying that it's taking the message that was sent from the dashboard to do a number of jobs. And so right now, this job is finished. What that means is that we're going to see an update of this dashboard. It means that nothing needs to be sent. It has been sent. And it has been sent here. It has been sent on this date, and it's expected back on that date for human translation. What's happening now also is that the last one was this project, number 19. Well, number 20 was created. And so automatically you get something that's happening in the TMS, in Lingotek. It has created number 20. It's 50% in progress. And the reason for that is I'm going to go over here before letting Aaron really talk about TMS. But there is a project workflow here whereby first it leverages the the translation memory. Then it creates a machine translation version. It sends it back to us. So actually right now the developer has the latest in French and in German for what was done in English. And then at some point later, a human translator is going to go through that. So Aaron, do you want me to play that? And do you want to talk through what I'm going to play here?
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to click and the way I do things in here.
Yep, just go ahead and click on that.
So I'm going to go to the French one.
So let me just talk real quickly about this, what you're seeing here, some details. So like Olivier mentioned, we have the workflow that really powers all of this. And what you can see is you have three phases here: the leverage, machine translate, and post edit. However, that can really be customized however you as a client want it to be. And what we do on our end is we sort of collaborate with you and try to understand the right balance of quality and speed that you're looking for to give you the right workflow. And then the other things you'll notice is that under the vendor column, an LSP is assigned, and the costs are actually automatically, the costs have already been calculated for this job. And then as well as that, a linguist is already assigned to it. So these are the things that a different organization may take a long time for them to get back to you on, because if you're sending them software strings all the time, one, they're really small, and so they have to manage all these tiny little projects, and it can really slow people down. But since we automatically assign it to an LSP, which is usually us, and we automatically calculate the cost, and we're already sending it to linguists, we don't have a lot of project management overhead, which allows that workflow to be really automated and scalable and quick, and allows you to sort of avoid anything like minimum fees or anything like that. So, I mean, that's a really great solution. We're really excited about it because the sort of pairing of automation, I think, is what really delivers the value here.
Yeah, thank you. So I'm going to be back a developer here. And so I'm looking at my repo and I'm thinking, oh, by the way, did I get anything back? And you've noticed that the human translator has not been involved right now. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to go to content. And what you're going to see here is that 2 minutes ago, I got back kit number 20. If you remember, in Lingotek, it was the project number 20 for both French and German. And so that was done right away. When Adam talks about continuous, yeah, that's it. That's what's happening right now. And if I go here, you'll notice in terms of as a dev, if I want to check something, I'm going to click on the commits. What was modified? Well, it used to be this before. And if you remember, in English, we've changed that to just 3PO, and that's the French translation. And so you're seeing for the German one, sorry, both of them have been translated, and you're seeing that part here. And now I'm going to go back as a non-translator, a non-developer, sorry, as a translator. I'm going to go to post edit. I'm going to finalize things as a human translator. And maybe I will make some changes, actually. So if I go here, I'm checking the translation memory, the terminology, machine translation, whatever is happening here. And Droid, actually, I would like to have it slightly different. I would like to have an E here, and I'm going to change my keyboard. I have a void, the right French way to do void. So you can see that I have returned something maybe with some slight inaccuracy, but really, if you wanted to deploy now, you could, which is fantastic. But also, maybe a day later, you get something back, or a week later, and at that point, it's going to be pushed back to the repo just exactly the same way. And as I'm going to close this here, I have things that are happening in the background. So I'm going to show you what's happening in the background here. Again, I'm going to do this. And let's see what happens here. First of all, by the way, this should be now completely translated. So you see that nothing is to be translated. I don't have anything in flight. Everything is back. I'm back 100% here. So you know exactly where you are with the dashboard. Back as a dev, I'm going to my repo here, just having a look at things. Let's see here. We'll go back one up actually, and got something 5 minutes ago. Let's see. So maybe I still have the old one, Droid. Yeah, it's not quite there yet. So maybe I forgot something here. Oh,
Okay.
this. I may have to approve something. Usually it's, I miss, I'm not an expert in Lingotek, so I think I must have missed it.
You missed one segment. I went in and completed it for you. So it should be on its way.
You did?
Yeah.
Oh, you did. Okay, so it's already back.
It should be on its way now. Okay,
thanks. So going back behind the scenes here, if I see callbacks, that'd be nice. If I don't, that'd be good. Yeah, there we go. We get, see, it's been called here automatically. I didn't have to do anything. So in the background, things now that Aaron has done the right way to handle the translation, it's being imported, checked, verified. There's actually a notification that's happening. This is being redeployed, by the way, as a DevOps. That's what you want to have. And so if I reload this now, I'm dev. I want to see my my good droids. And I'm going here and see droid that's the right one. So you're seeing things that are happening really fast from an MT perspective, and then sometimes later from a full translation perspective. I think we are pretty much unique here. So we've done that part. And what's happening here is, you remember this premise here in 3PO that was in French. At some point, the application will be deployed. So it may take a day. That's a different story, how DevOps is going to define the rhythm, the frequency. But you can see that for us here, it's been redeployed, it's 3PO. And you can also see that the other one has not been completely done because it's Droid. So it was the first empty side. At some point, this one is also going to be redeployed with the human translation side, and now it's with the human translation. So you see how continuous, how well-oiled this whole thing is, completely automated in between translation management system that has MT. And by the way, the MT can be trained. You can have translation memory that can be updated. So you have all the power of an MT at your disposal that is really for your Rebel Outfitters company. In addition to, so you can have something really good from the beginning, from the get-go, in addition to human translation. But now we're going to go to the second part of the demo, which is as a linguistic reviewer, there may still be some things that are not quite right. So a Japanese, or in my instance, going to be French, a reviewer looks at the application, has access to localizer QA, and that's what they are interacting with. The rest of the system is completely automated. And we wanted to show you how easy it is to do that. And it will go back to Lingotek and back to the repo very smoothly. This process here, can take, like Adam says, days, actually really weeks is more what I see. So at that point, I am yet another person here. I am somebody with other glasses here. Here we go. And I am a linguistic reviewer. So as a linguistic reviewer, I'm going to start on Localizer QA here. And let's just check that I'm logged in because things get logged out all the time. Yeah. Here we are. So as a, I'm now in Localizer QA. I'm part of maybe a team that's an in-country reviewer. They don't know anything about the TMS, or maybe they do. They don't know anything about repositories and how things are being created in terms of the application. What they know is they know their target language, like French or Japanese. And so there are a number of users that are set up with each one of them their preferred languages to that will be done in terms of linguistic review. For me, it's French and Norwegian. Some others maybe Chinese, for example, for Lily. Here we go. You have applications that you need to linguistically review from time to time, and you have actual reviews. And in the reviews, right now for each application, I have one review going. For this one, it's the welcome page. For this one, it's a completely ad hoc review mechanism for this particular application, Maria. For that one, for the Square Rebel outfitters, it's droids and vehicles. So you can have something very focused on one part of the application, maybe based on the sprint. You can have something that's more around a function of your application, or something that's review everything from my application because it's really the first time. And that's based on directives. So I'm going to go to the tasks. Maybe I'm only interested in the French task because that's what I do these days. So I look at those. This is in progress, and it already is assigned. I'm going to take this one here and run with that. So what it tells me is it gives me some directives here. I really have super small directives. Review the droids and the vehicles. It could be a fairly lengthy directive here to get there. And what that says is I need to go here and I need to review droids and vehicles. So for example, let's say that this one, I don't like the fact again that droid is off. So I'm going to say, I don't like this one in that page. The very first thing is, what is the current text that I want to change? What do I want to change it to? I want to change it to droid with the lemma and an E. And I need a key. So that key is really how the whole automation is going to work. And in order to find the key, you switch to not Chinese, you don't switch to Japanese, Esperanto, you switch to linguistic reviewer, this one. And in reality, this is typically something like Esperanto or something like Interlingua. There is a special locale that is just like any other locale, but we make it special. So what you notice here is there is a number in front of every one of the resources that have been returned in the repo for French, German, and the other locales that you have. And I'm going to use that key here to push that here. And I'm going to add that. Actually, I forgot to add something here. It's like the this. For example, so at that, you can see that I can modify if I didn't do exactly right. I can change maybe even how I want to do that by just reloading and so on. I can have a number of other things here. I'm just going to do one because there's actually a lot that I'm not showing, but I'm just going to say I am done with my review. I've reviewed all my vehicles and all my droids on the page, so I've followed the directives. I'm good. But I want to submit my correction. So when I submit my correction here, what I'm really doing is I'm doing this part. So I was here, on that side. I was reviewing my my system, and I don't know this side of the equation. I don't know how things are being handled on the other end. But somehow a message was sent from localizer QA to localizer, and that message is going to tell the localizer to do some special things to automate everything. So if we go back here, behind the scenes, so this time I'm not a linguistic reviewer, I am a behind the scenes kind of guy. You're seeing that this has been called, and this posted it process request is doing a number of things. The first thing it does is it identifies exactly which string in which repository, in which branch, in which file, in which the exact thing that we've identified with the key or French. Let's check this and let's verify that it is in that file. We have that. You didn't make a mistake when you did that, and so on. So this whole automation also handles errors. And I'm just going to go back very briefly here on the localizer QA. If I go back here as a localizer QA guide, what is happening is I can check my post edits. While this is happening in the background, you see that the one that I just sent is waiting return because right now nothing has been pushed back to the repo. It's being handled by the system. There was an error that was done earlier by some person here who said another reviewer who did something, and the nice thing is that you can see exactly what was the problem. The change from ambassador to médiateur was not found. In French, ambassadeur is not with an OR, it's ambassadeur with an EUR. So it was not done right, if you want. And so we're telling them, reviewer, if you want to do that differently, you can do this, and it's gonna work like it. Things that were taken into account beforehand are in green, and you can see here that for each one of them, you can actually have a GitHub kind of link, so that if you have access to the repo, which would be surprising, you can see the change that was made in the repo, in the branch, in the sweat file. Typically, it's more to contact developers if at any point in time something else needs to happen or developers have questions. You can send that link to the developer to see exactly here. This is what things. So we want to make sure that we have a little bit more information that may be strictly necessary for the localizer QA reviewers, linguistic reviewers, for an easier communication. So let's go with now this guy here. And this guy now probably is telling us that we have something to do for French, but not for German. That's what I would expect. I did my review in French. There was one file, one key, 3 words for that. It was a something droid. It's this file that needs to be sent. It's the same file as before, but it could have been any other file, could have been in a different repo, could have been something else. So what's happening now is, if I want to just do this part right now, I can send that to translate. And so what will happen is, as the log manager, I can sit on those changes. I can wait for more reviews to happen in different locales, for example. But here, let's see that only everything was done, and the only error that was found was corrected by the French guy. So now I'm going to go to Lingotek, and at some point in Lingotek, something else will happen. So the projects here. So it may look complicated, but every person has a very narrow view of this entire thing. And so in Lingotek, all you see is, I've got square 21 here. It's for, what do I have? And I have a new file, string.json, for French. It was done right here. And as Aaron was mentioning, it's already assigned to a vendor. It's been costed out. There's no, it's really small. You don't have that first hurdle of every time you assign a project, something needs to happen, and this guy can do it. So if I go to post edit here, the really cool thing is I'm going to check the notes that I have. And you see that for this one here, I got an LQA note for this particular person. So this may be somebody in France smoking their cigarette on a cafe table on the terrace of Vendôme or something, and tells me that in French it's Doid, not this one. And so I would like it to be this string. And as a translator, I realized that, yeah, that was it's better to do it this way. So at that point, I'm going to agree with that. And by the way, you see that it's already maybe better. So I may change that, or I may even change it just a little bit differently. Maybe I want something super droid or something. So I can even do more. I can get that feedback. As a translator, I can say, yeah, I like the way that the French guy in back in his cafe in Paris is doing things, but there is something still missing. So I can do this even more, a more refined thing, right? You don't have to only obey that. That's it. Mark that as complete, click this, and you see that notifications are being sent. And so now what's happening here is that on that picture, before the click of the button, send what the project in Lingotek to be translated anew for something very small. And by the way, there's a company that we interact with. They had 7 little things like this. They are exchanging emails out of the wazoo to understand how it's going to be handled. It was started on May 18th. It's still not finished. It's just 7 little things, right? For us, 7 things. It's like, this is how it's handled. It's within minutes. So here in Lingotek, what's happening now is that it's being returned to Localizer, and it's going to be pushed to the repo if everything is good. So let's go back to the middle side. Again, it's another person. So the translator in Lingotek does not know what's happening on that part of things here. But you see that we're getting callbacks from Lingotek, and we're processing those requests. We're changing what needs to be modified, and then we're going to redeploy because we're cool DevOps people. So at some points in the dev side, maybe I'll get notification that I got a new commit. Oops, I don't have glasses in this one. I'm going to go over here. And 2 minutes ago, I got Kit 21. If you remember, that was Kit 21. And what is the difference here? What was changed? What did it change? Oh, they changed this guy. It's now that one here. So that was from empty. And at some point later, there will be another one that will be specifically for the human translator changes. So on empty, you see that actually it was done right from the empty side. And then on Kit 21 still, there will be then the second part, which will be, I don't know if it's this one or not, which will be the full thing with, it's not this one, with the super. Did I miss again a step, Aaron? I have a feeling I missed this step again.
Maybe, let's see, jump back in there.
Yeah, thanks. So what's happening really here is that you're seeing the handling of a correction or an application that's been deployed either on a QA specific application or even in prod, if you want. And the feedback from folks who are in France, in Japan, in China, wherever they are, is being handled by the entire system and is actually ending in the TMS before being pushed back to the repo. So it's pretty. Oh, actually, here we are. Yeah, I think it probably.
I want to add that no developers had to move the file around, and you never had to ask a developer to do something to execute a localization task.
Exactly, that's a really good point. Yeah, developers, the guy without the glasses here right now, all he does is check his repos from time to time, change the strings in English, and everything is hunky-dory. And by the way, if as a dev, I want to see my app now, you see that it's was translated by MT this way. Pretty good, actually. The human translator decided to go a slightly different way, and maybe updated the transition memory or some other things. But at that point, if I go back here and if DevOps happened in French here, there it is already there, super Droid. That's for the super presentation. Back to you, Adam.
All right, let me get my webcam back on. All right, Olivier, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, the security one. I do. We're probably going to run over on the Q&A. We have a lot of questions, which is just great. That makes me very, very happy. Again, if you have further questions, I'm going to go through every question, but we are going to run over to go through every question. So use the Q&A, the questions interface, and GoToMeeting link. It's probably down on your right if it's in that part of your screen. All right, so it bears mention that what we're doing here is we're interfacing automatically with source code. And for many companies, that's a real security concern. So your IT department will probably have a lot of questions like, what are you doing? You're connecting to my source code, right? So I want to emphasize that we have, like, both products, both Lingotek and all of the Lingoport solutions have on-premise and hosted solutions. That said, I have to say for Lingoport, most of our customers are, we have a great many large brand customers that you've heard of. And most of these companies do end up choosing an on-premise solution. The thing that I would say to give your team a little confidence is that Lingoport products are used by a lot of brands that have security on their mind all the time. To name a few names like Visa, the two largest e-commerce fulfillers in the world. One's in Seattle, the other one is in China. These are companies that have really, really high security standards. So we're used to getting these like 40-page questionnaires on security. So this is just examples without dropping too many logos and names. There are hybrid solutions. Sometimes, one part will be in the cloud. So maybe Lingotek is in the cloud because that makes the most sense. You're just dealing with resource bundles and the like. Maybe even, there are some companies that use our cloud solutions as well. So both exist and all that. If you're inclined to learn more about that, there is a wiki, wiki.lingoport.com. If you just go in the search bar without remembering this URL, just type security and then it'll take you to the security pages. So know that that exists. Next page. And we should be ready for Q&A. I've got my information there. I'm going to just take the questions starting from the beginning as how they went. So to be fair to the people who asked questions first, some of the questions we're going to see are already answered during the presentation, but I think it's worth revisiting them anyway. All right, do you have any plugin that works for WordPress? And I would say Lingoport doesn't. Lingoport is really focused on what happens in the source repository for software development. But I know Lingotek has a WordPress plugin.
That's correct. We have had a WordPress plugin for many years. It's one of our first, and you can find that. It's actually free to try. So.
Okay, good. All right. And can you automate Localizer to send files whenever they change? I thought the schedule was limited to once a day. I think the quick answer to that is it's how you configure it. Olivier, you have anything to add?
Exactly. There are so many ways. We showed one simple way here with the click of a button, but you can do that based on webhooks and files that have been modified. You can do on a timer every week if you want to, every night if you want to, like you were saying. So there are a lot of ways. And yes, it can be also done whenever something has been modified. However, that's not necessarily the way that you want to do things, just because as you've seen here, with one string that was modified, it was what, 16 cents. And so if you're working on an application in a feature branch, you're doing a little bit of an interface, like 3 words, and then the next hour you 5 words and you're committing that, and the next day you're doing 10 words, you may want to wait till you have a little bit of a bulk before you change that, but that's up to you to do that.
Well, I'm going to flip that around and just say that if you're taking the empty initial route that we showed here, why wouldn't you just do it right away?
You can absolutely, you choose.
Good, good. All right, thanks. That's the way I like. Question about statement of don't build IATN backlogs. What if an organization has never done IATN properly? Don't they need a product owner who'd own the roadmap, hence some sort of backlog? Globalizer could be really helpful to such a product manager, as it will expose the amount of technical debt and help build a solid IATN backlog of road items. Well, this person needs to write copy for our web pages. It's exactly correct. So, and I do know the person involved, so hi. Anyway, you are right on. You know, I say don't build the backlogs, and that is a best practice thing. Like if you're scanning with Globalizer as developers are writing code, you're not digging yourself a hole that has to be corrected later on, right? That was the idea around that statement. That said, Lingoport does actually quite a bit of our business is in helping companies with these backlogs. We have this service that we're probably going to, we never really properly name it, but the latest we're talking about is calling it Sherpa. We have this IATN Sherpa service where companies assign a couple of our team members to be part of their, you know, sort of IATN hit squad, so to speak. And we go in and we identify issues that are in their code. Often they exist first as a bug report, and then we find them using Globalizer, and then we go in and correct them and update them. Sometimes that's on a very, very large scale, where the application has never been internationalized, and we're doing really big work. And you know, if you want to learn more about that process, go into Lingoport's blog, and in the search thing, search on Agile Central. That's an application that we did a webinar on, like the full internationalization of that product. It had never been internationalized. It was a very large application. So you see both. All right. Let's see. Is there any way to pass developer comments and screenshots to the translation environment? Now, I happen to know that this question was asked before Olivier showed his localizer QA demo. So the point is here that you no longer ever need to collect screenshots, because why collect a screenshot when you can actually interact right in the application and make a change, right? So full context is actually assumed. Now, that said, there is kind of a legacy way to do that. It only works on web apps, whereas Localizer QA doesn't care where you have a web app, a mobile app, a console app. It was actually built to get beyond that, which is super cool. In that legacy method, the screenshots were actually automatically collected as well. So that possibility always does exist if you want to go that route. But I definitely say, wow, that really this localizer QA is a lot more fluid in terms of putting the developer actually in the application, just following the normal QA scripts that are there for every, you know, sort of QA tester. So it really puts the localizer human translator right in the midst of the normal QA cycle of an application rather than something separate. Hopefully that answers that. Okay, hi guys, thank you for the webinar. The thing with avoiding minimum fees is not quite clear to me. Very good. How does Lingotek actually manage to avoid it with translation vendors, especially if the translation vendor is another translation agency? Thank you. Aaron, I'll let you take that on.
Sure. Yeah, so basically the idea is minimum fees are derived from project management overhead. So whether we're the LSP or we have other LSPs working with us, it has to come down to an agreement between the client and your language services provider. So obviously with Lingotek, if you're sending us a bunch of content, you know, every day or weekly or what have you, and it's enough that, you know, we don't really care about project management fees, because at the end of the month is really, we just bill you then. So we don't look at each individual upload as its own project. We just look at all uploads as their own, all uploads together, and then we just sort of bill on a monthly basis, which makes it easy to avoid the project or the minimum fees. Because again, and if I'm not being clear, basically the overhead is I get a new file, and that's a small teeny tiny file. I have to send emails back and forth. I have to do all of this stuff to calculate costs. I have to communicate with the client and get approval. With our system, all of that stuff I just said is automated. And because it's automated, we don't have to charge you minimum fees. Was that clear?
Yes, thank you. I mean, another little sort of comment on the industry is, if we go more to a QA view of the human interaction, it kind of makes sense to get out of the price per word mode. And that is a matter of you talking with your reviewers about that and thinking a little bit out of the box, but it's going to be faster and it's going to produce better quality. All right, next question here. What if your application is made of multiple components coming from multiple repos? Can you still identify the string and change them directly in the application? Thank you for asking that question.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm going to go here. The answer is yes.
I love this.
What you're saying in the, when I was showing the locale that has the key, that key identifies the repo, identifies the branch, it identifies the file, it identifies the resource. It's super precise. And applications typically are made up of, you know, maybe 100 different repos. We handle all of that, yes.
All right. Yeah, the system is actually built to take that into account. Most of our customers have complex applications. You know, once in a while I'll hear about a company trying to put all their strings in a single repository. And to me, that puts the burden on developers for unnecessary complication, and that it's going to break down. Before long, entropy is going to take over, and it's just not going to work. So we assume that people are going to work the way that they're used to working. Oh, I'm working on a new feature. I'm going to use Git for what Git is for, and I'm going to branch off, and I'm going to start to write this new thing. And localization better just keep up. Well, yeah, localization better keep up. That's how we feel too. All right. Can you share a bit more about how Localizer and Localizer QA work with mobile apps? For example, does the tester open the app on the phone and log the bugs in Localizer QA on the computer? I would say that you see a combination of emulation used and actual devices used. That kind of depends on the testing practices of the software development organization. Olivier, go ahead. I'll be quiet.
Yeah. So pretty much, provided you're able to switch locale or have devices with two locales, for example, French and the localizer QA locale, then you have those on the device typically, and then you go on the web application that's localizer QA, and you enter what you want to enter. So if on your iOS you see Droid without DE, you enter Droid without DE. You want to change it to Droid with an E, you add it in there, and then you switch to locale. You now have the key, you enter the key, you're done.
All right, this is a neat question here. Do you allow, stay on, Olivier, do you allow context review by customer representatives once deployed and make suggestions for change?
Yes, so it's your organization will decide that. We don't. We have all the infrastructure so that you can do that. And then, as you've noticed, the feedback that is provided by the reviewer gets funneled to the TMS. So you will have all the glossary, all the treasure memory, everything that you have in the TMS or an LSP that is catching that suggestion from whomever you want to add to your group in Localizer QA, and we'll make sure that this is conforming to what they need to do from the LSP perspective, and then push that back to the repo. So I think it's a really flexible system that allows for different type of organizations.
Yeah. And I just want to emphasize, that mechanism exists so that you approve that input. It's not just sort of automatically added willy-nilly. All right. Okay, what engine is being used for MT? How can we test the quality of MT translations? Olivier and Aaron, I'm going to rely on you.
So yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, our TMS, we integrate with a number of MT engines. So anything from Microsoft, Amazon, DeepL, Google, Intento, and so on. And we also have the ability to integrate with other MT engines as well, as long as they have their own APIs that we can hook up with. In terms of measuring the quality of MT, we have a few mechanisms that you can use there. We have an edit distance report, which really gives you an idea of how much, how often, and how much content from the MT is getting edited by a human. And then usually you work with your MT provider, whoever that is, to train your own personal MT engines. So the training aspect of it and improving piece, usually that works when customers have their own credentials with MT engines. So in short, if we have MT out of the box that we can just sort of give you, but that doesn't give you all the customization that you could have if you had your own instance of MT that you can plug into our system.
Right, very good, Aaron. I'm just going to mention that we also have, Lingoport also has an express series of projects on the GitHub marketplaces in that you just instantly add these Lingoport Express products to your GitHub contributor list, and that they can do things like send out to your choice of, there's several, right now I think as deployed it's just Amazon Translate, but we'll soon be releasing a bunch of other choices as well. But you could go straight to MT, but again, what we find is that when we have larger enterprises, you start to have processes in place. Ownership of the TM becomes an important translation asset. Hence, the TMS connection becomes really important. Okay, man, we're still getting questions coming in. Any recommendations on keys? I've seen keys where the application, in the application, the value belongs. Also have seen keys based on repos directory-based location. My take is to include some context info along with other info rather than just numbers. Olivier.
Yeah, so the term key is just like the term project is slightly overloaded. The key that we're using with Localizer QA is a special, our own sauce. It's not something that was 45665. It's something that we generate. It's not the actual key in the resource file. In the resource file, what you're saying is you'll have something like address.title equals, I don't know, my address. That is not the key that we use in Localizer QA. In Localizer QA, we have our own stuff. And sometimes that term can be confusing. For us, in Localizer QA, it's a way to identify back to the repo and to the structure of the development source files, how things are identified. So the key that you saw in Rebel Outfitters, when I switched to Linguistic Reviewer, that's not the key that's in the resource file.
That's some of the secret sauce. By the way, we actually went and got this patented. So it is fairly unique to us. All right, and here's the next one. How do I learn more about IETNet? And I would say just if you want to just learn general information about internationalization, go to Lingoport's blog, so lingoport.com, and then click on the blog link. And then in this, there's a little search box, and that's kind of the key to everything there. Type in gremlins, those little monsters, gremlins. We did a really popular webinar a while back, and it still gets pulled up a lot, on the idea of associating various IETN issues with gremlin characters, and it gives a summary of everything from embedded strings to methods, functions, classes that maybe don't represent a date or a time correctly, for the locale. Anyway, I would suggest going through that webinar. It's free. Just go ahead and do it. All right. Lastly, what's the process of onboarding? I'm concerned about how many repositories need to be onboarded. Olivier, that's a you question.
Yeah, we have different deployments. So when Adam was talking about the marketplace GitHub application, it's really easy. You click a few buttons and you decide which projects you want to onboard and how to onboard them. It's super fast. And then we have the one that I was showing today. That type of deployment is can show you a little bit, not too much, but just to give you a sense a little bit. Here is for the particular product. If I'm not logged out, you just configured something that says which is the repo, which is the branch, and how do I want things to be translated. So that page, because we're sharing a screen, may take a little while to upload, but pretty much you see right here GitHub project here, or project doesn't need to be GitHub, but here it's a GitHub one, github.com, Lingoport, rebel.git. And then below that, you're going to see the branch that it's on. So the branch is going to be Square. I think that's the branch that we have, and it's still loading. So sorry, it's taking a long time to load whenever we share a screen. And then you choose which locales you want to have, who is receiving maybe notifications or some other things. That's the type of resource files you have, and the shape of the resource files. That's pretty much it. And once you're done with that, it may take, you may want to validate to verify that what you have does correspond in terms of this particular, this instance of the dashboard for that project and that branch, for example. And it's still loading, so I'm just going to try to go. The thing is that it looks really big because it's still loading, but okay, so let me go here. All right, so
while that's loading, just let me say that this we're showing in GitHub, but really anything Git is fine. Right. So Bitbucket, GitLab, actually even Subversion, right?
So for example, you want to add Norwegian there, you just added Norwegian. What file type? It was a JSON, if you remember. It's in UTF-8. And what is the naming convention? It's something that says it's under ENUS file.json, and you can change that here. And then do you have a restriction in terms of where the files are found, or do you want to find all the files in that form? That's pretty much it. Once you're done, you save it, and you got a project.
All right. This one's another question for you. Somebody asked if we supported more than GitHub. I just answered that.
Oh, yeah.
Are we able to handle transforms? Yes, that's a really
that's not only do we handle transforms, we write transform for pretty much every company that we work with. Because everybody has non-standard file formats. I gave a webinar at Log World 44 about file formats, how when you use standard file formats, the entire ecosystem around localization is going to work seamlessly. If you don't, really, you need to use us because we deal with it really well. We add something in our framework that is going to do transform from the repo to the TMS and back, and we do that really well. So yes.
Good. This is the last question I'm going to take because we're so far over the hour, but I really appreciate all the questions. Do you allow customers to choose MT engine use? We actually covered that a little bit. There's quite a bit of flexibility via Lingotek in terms of the engine you use, your own custom engine, many choices. If you don't have a TMS and you want the quick MT feedback, we do have that, but right now, just for Amazon Translate, shortly we're adding Microsoft and I think a couple of other engines. But really, most of our customers go through a TMS, and that should allow for custom engines as well as multiple choices. With that, if everybody would, Olivier and Aaron, put your webcams on. I want to say thank you. Thank you. Most of you who attended stayed the whole time, which I really appreciate. Aaron, thanks for jumping in. You did a great job. Olivier, super demos. Really appreciate it. If people have further questions, by all means, we got a nice thank you just coming in on the Q&A. We're available. You can hit us up on any of the things. Connect with me on LinkedIn if you like. And take care, everyone. We'll put together, we haven't figured out the next webinar, but you'll get an announcement. All right, and the recording is coming soon. Bye.